Yo, yo, yo!
Hello!
Hello, everybody, and welcome to Heelanhammer, episode 103, sponsored by Og Games. On today's show, our main topic is a chat about how we fit in hobby time around our busy life. We look at a story of the week, a war room based around vampires, and of course, the usual beardy weirdy weeks. All this and more on today's Heelanhammer. Hello, Wayne. How's it going?
Very well, thank you.
Good.
You love that bit, don't you?
I do. It's good. Everyone has their little, things that they like to do, and that's what I like to do.
You have more than most.
I do. So, how's it going? Good?
Very good, yeah. Been a busy boy in all, hobby, life, been a bit of a rush lately.
Good.
Not enough hours in a day.
I mean, I'm sure we'll talk about it later, but you and I have been procrastinating. I don't know, is that the word?
Yes.
Thinking a lot about the fact that we are going to Adepticon, which is unbelievably coming up soon, isn't it?
I've never actually spent so much time working on lists.
No. Yeah, you've even been sending me pictures from your phone of lists you've written.
Yeah.
Because you haven't quite got into the quartermaster type battle scribe age yet.
No, I'm still scribbling on bits of paper.
Yeah.
I'm taking a picture of that and then sending you the picture of what I've scribbled. Yeah.
But see, that's still pretty good. That's still technologically up there, isn't it? So
in a kind of dinosaur way, yeah.
Yeah. So there you go. But yeah, I mean, we'll talk about that a bit later. But yeah, it has been busy, and I've been similar. I seem to be spending a lot of time behind this microphone and a lot of time behind this desk doing painting. So whilst trying to do an incredibly busy job at the moment. So, all busy, but it's all good. Loads to talk about as a result. So straight into the news.
Coming to you live from Portsmouth, this is the Heelanhammer Network News.
Okay, so the news. Before we get going on the news, we just want to mention our sponsors, oggames.co.uk, for all your fun time needs. Especially if you're into Magic and the newest internet craze, X-Wing at the moment. It's everywhere. I don't know if you've seen a lot of this on Twitter, Wayne.
You can't not see it.
I suppose we're almost promoting it by talking about it, but it's proven very popular on the UK scene here. And there's tournaments already popping up all over the place doing this, little one-dayers. And there's even a podcast out at the moment by Mr. Ben Curry himself. So, tons of stuff going on with that. And Og Games is the place to get it. There's some new ships I hear coming out soon, and they will have them, so check them out. And if you use over February and March the code WINTERHAMMER, all one word, if you spend £40 or more, you'll save an extra 5%. So check them out. And of course, if you're still not just looking for fun times, you're also looking for important things and supplies for your army, you can pick out the most important thing they do at great prices. We were talking about this just before we came on air, is magnetic sheeting and magnets. So check those out. Great prices. Okay, the news. Games Workshop. We have White Dwarf Weekly, so we've now had a couple more episodes, haven't we, Wayne? Additions episodes, I don't know what you want to call them. So we're through all the Dwarf releases now. The Dwarf releases we will be covering in a show, probably in a couple of shows' time, really, when we've had a chance to digest it. And we always like to have played a couple of games before we talk about our initial thoughts. And I think it helps break it up for those of you who listen to lots of Warhammer podcasts, because it's already everywhere at the moment. Everybody's talking about Dwarf, so we're not. We will do when we've had a good chance to have a real look at it. So, what was your thoughts of the overall Dwarf release, though? I suppose a better touch on it. Good in the end?
Yeah, they're all right. Tricky with Dwarfs, isn't it? Because the models themselves, they're kind of, there's not a lot you can do with them. Essentially, they're kind of compacted models, aren't they? Their bodies are sort of chunky, the arms, it's very hard to do anything dynamic with them, I think. The plastics that have come out, they look really good. They're solid. So.
I've heard it on a few different podcasts and seen it on the internet. A lot of people talking about they're a bit static, although people, I think, it's widely appreciated that the models are really good. The one criticism some people have laid against them is they're a little bit static. But for me, that was always the Dwarf thing, shield wall.
I think with the what's the word I'm looking for? Well, just what dwarfs are in general.
Stunty.
Yeah, it's just the shape of a dwarf. It's how wide they are. How compact they are. As you see them, they can only really look the way they are.
Yeah.
You can only do so much of it. It's not like an elf where you can have it twisting all over the place and dancing all over and in real combat poses and weird poses as well, like they've done with some of the dark elves.
Sure.
The dwarves should look kind of very regimented and very sort of tough looking and big and bulky, really.
Yeah.
So I think I really like them. I think they're nice models. Not sure about gyrocopters at the moment. I like them, but I'm not sure why I like them, because it's kind of like, I don't know, it's a bit too 40k for me. Flying machines and dropping bombs and all that kind of stuff. But
I suppose it's moving away from the stereotypical Tolkien-esque type affair. But yeah, I quite like him. I'm not sure I'd paint them the sort of, is it green and white, red and white type colour scheme I saw in White Dwarf, but I think when you see them all out in an army of the new stuff, I think it's going to look really, really good. I'm looking forward to seeing the few tournaments over the next 6 months and seeing some dwarfs. I don't think the words would ever have come out of my mouth like that before. I'd love to see dwarfs at tournaments, but I'm looking forward to seeing them. I saw a couple of pictures of a guy what we know from the UK scene playing them on Twitter, sort of a multiple small unit army, and that looked great fun. Might even try and tap him up for a Skype combo actually. But yeah, they did actually. Did look a lot of fun, and I really like the biggest thing for me is the kind of Norse look that some of them look with the big shields and the runes on the front and that. And yeah, overall I was really impressed. And
that's probably the biggest change actually. It's the shields.
Yeah,
that whole kind of almost like a Spartan shield. It's almost like they can get the whole body behind it and do the shield wall. Obviously they've got the shield wall rule, haven't they?
Yeah.
So yeah, I do like that. What I found weird, what you said about the colours of the gyrocopters, it's kind of like dwarfs are like really serious, aren't they? They're like really kind of grumpy, serious, kind of just moan a lot, very, and yet that stuff's painted like really bright, vivid, cheerful colours, and I don't know, that don't sound right. They don't look right, I should say. It doesn't really fit with how they are. But I suppose if everything was drab, it'd look pretty boring.
Indeed, I think that there might be one of the things I'd like to paint at some point. I mean, we touched on it last time that I did try and start one a while ago, but the new models maybe spurred me on to have a relook at that, because I suppose it's a lot of infantry models, but I think you could do a lot with the basing. Potentially either having it sort of north from the mountains with snow if you're that way inclined, or rubble, rocks, or internal with sort of paving and stonework and things.
Columns everywhere,
yeah,
all sorts of stuff.
I think there's some great opportunities there. So I'm really looking forward to seeing some decent new dwarf armies out there, and just seeing how they do on the table as well. I think that my brief glimpses of the book so far have been quite impressed with the artwork and the sort of how they've the setting, the backdrop of the whole army. It looks great. I'm also interested to see, it's the one thing, unfortunately we haven't got an infinite pool of money, otherwise I would like to download all the digital campaign packs and all the rest of it, but I'll try and get a look at them in the coming weeks as people do download them. But I'd imagine that's pretty good. I know it has been for the other races, so there's a lot of support and a lot of different things out there. We've got the Black Library books as well, so if you have downloaded the digital campaign pack or have read the Black Library book, just drop us an email and let us know what you thought. I'll be interested to relay that on to the listeners. But yeah, some great stuff out there. So that was all good. And the latest White Dwarf that we've seen, by the time this one goes out, we probably would have had another one, but the latest one we've seen is that's just come out, was all 40k based, so there's not really any Warhammer story. I did like the model though. It's quite cool. There's a big what's it called? Imperial Knight or something, I think it's called.
Yeah, it's like a Titan, isn't it?
Yeah, sort of Titan thing. But I liked it. Was really cool actually, because in a big White Dwarf, I wouldn't necessarily have read the fluff, but where I pay every week for a White Dwarf from a shop, I paid for it. I might as well read it. It's quite nice to just read the 40k fluff.
Yeah,
and completely uninterested in the rules and just see what these are all about. The only thing is, and I apologise for talking about 40k, is I kind of didn't feel like it plugged enough gaps for me in this particular one. They said these Imperial Knights are a race of guys that basically are like almost like a lost civilization from age gone past. They're all, because they've got individual heraldry, and they're kind of part of the Imperium by sort of common goals. But they didn't. In White Dwarf, I know presumably the book or whatever that's going to be coming out for them would tell you a bit more, but it didn't quite give me enough background in terms of what they are. There was a few holes for me. I was like, well, are they human? It said like a guy gets in the robot, but I was like, are they superhuman, like giant guys that are in the robot, or are they little dudes and there's loads of electronics fixed to them? I don't really know.
They're just like Marines, aren't they? That have just been, like Colin with the dreadnoughts.
Yeah, that's what I'm presuming. It's a little guy in a massive battle suit, like that, rather than a big guy in a big battle suit. So
no, it's not a big guy. It's definitely not a big guy.
It's had pictures of like a Hulk smash walking around in one of these things.
I think it's like, do you remember ever seeing a film called Robot Jogs?
No. That sounds dire.
No, you'd love it.
Oh, it was good, was it? Yeah.
And massive robots. There was another film. They made two films. I can't remember the name of the other one now. But there was basically these huge robots, and people were inside the robots. One person in each robot. And they used to use them for fighting. They used to, in one of the films, they used to use it for any disputes between countries. The champion of each country would be in one of these massive robots, and they'd slug it out.
Oh, that's cool.
And then obviously the winner of the bout would
sort you out,
decide the dispute, like a border dispute or something like that.
I like that. The world should do that with its problems. We should make giant robots and fight it out. So there you go. But so that was interesting. So
I think similar to, is it Pacific Rim? Like that's a similar thing, isn't it?
I think so. I haven't seen it, but
I haven't seen it, but I think that's a similar thing. Yeah.
But yes, that was interesting. So again, still worth it. And people who don't want to know about it don't have to buy it. You're not losing half the magazine. You just don't buy the magazine. I know I did hear somebody on a podcast talking about maybe what they should have done is split the magazine, so you have a weekly Warhammer one and a weekly 40k one, and you can choose which one to do. But this effectively what they've done with this one is all pretty much all 40k.
I suppose you've only got to wait a week, haven't you? So
yeah. Actually, I like it.
I don't buy it, but
no.
You
have a read of mine, yeah.
I've had a flick through a couple of yours, and just I can't justify spending the money on it.
No. Well. Yeah, I understand that viewpoint certainly, and you're not alone on that. But I'm still enjoying it, still loving it really, but I suppose that, as I say, I don't really buy a lot of models anymore, so that is my hobby spending. So, okay, so that's out. Not too much else to tell you about that. The other big event from a community perspective I want to talk about, which we're going to cover a lot more in the next show, I've got a few interviews lined up and things, was the US Masters. So those of you who don't know, the US is a pretty big place. I was surprised how much. I don't know if you've seen any of this, Wayne, probably not, but I was asked to come on and give some colour commentary to some of the matchups.
Yeah.
And they asked me a few geography questions about the United States. Surprisingly, I got them completely wrong. But they did explain this to me. It's quite a big country, apparently. So, and I've since looked at the map.
Why am I not surprised? After your, you got previous for this, haven't you? The whole island thing.
Yes, indeed.
So, yeah.
Yeah, and, I've got Irish heritage, so that makes it even worse. My granddad's Irish.
Oh man, that makes it
So anyway,
terrible.
Yeah, do we not know this? Heelan's an Irish name. Yeah. Anyway,
I didn't know that. No.
There you go. You learned something new today. So yeah, lots of regions, and as a result, there's been Chad, the main organizer, has gone through so many issues trying to set this up, and he finally got everybody there. From all over the place. Some guys drove, I think it was 18, 19 hours or some crazy amount to get there through the awful snow weather and things they've got in certain regions. And each region had their own qualifying bit. And I won't go into it too much because, that's very much for the next show. But they finally got everyone in the room at a great time. The coverage was excellent. They had a few technical glitches early on, which is always going to be the case. But they had a Magic the Gathering guy who was streaming Table 1 the entire weekend in a HD camera. He had a couple of cameras on the table at different angles. He had a mobile camera, and he literally, all he was doing was coverage. So you could ask him in the chat room. I know me and Ben Curry were watching the last from the Bad Dice podcast. We're watching the last game, and we wanted to know. We were chatting in the chat room about what was in the dead pile, and we asked, "Can you look at the dead pile?" And he picked the camera up and looked at the dead pile for us, so we could have a look. It was really good. It was like interactive Warhammer, and yeah, as people be well aware who know me, and also because of the show, I'm a massive Warhammer fan. I could watch Warhammer like I watch football. It is a spectator sport for me. So, and that was brilliant. So most of the weekend I managed to sort of slyly do that while I was looking after the kids with little bunny ears. So that was good. Now, again, I'm not going to go too much into it, but I did want to touch on the winners. So congratulations to Justin Berge. I believe that's how you pronounce it. He won. He come in sort of through the back door with High Elves. He was on table 3, I think. Big win, table 3. A couple of small tight results on 1 and 2, and he leapfrogged. So High Elves. That was in the Swedish composition system as well, which a lot of countries over the world have given a go at this system. I think it's getting a little bit tired for some countries through some of the podcasts I've heard and some of the forum stuff I've seen, but they did adopt it. And I know in the UK, High Elf's got a bit of stick of being impossible to write lists over, but in the last 2 big Swedish events I've seen, they've either won or podiumed, so they can't be that bad under it. So, High Elf's good all-round balanced list as far as I'm aware. Again, I'm going to try and tap him up maybe for an interview or at least get some more information on that for the next show for you. And then second and third place were both 2 players from the Northeast, which was Matt Cassidy and John Hankin, both with Doc, Demons of Chaos, and they played on table 1 in the last round, and we got to watch that. Shame it didn't finish, actually. The game only went 3 or 4 turns. The guys were obviously having a good time doing it, but weren't necessarily playing it as pacey as... not deliberately, just disclaimer. They were just having a good time, and I think they just ran out of time. But I think that Matt might be kicking himself slightly, because I think if that game had gone on, he would have got a bigger win and could have taken out first maybe. So, but yeah, really good. Enjoyed it. So I want to thank everybody for the organisers for running it, the guys that covered it, and of course the players for being good sports. Because one thing about media coverage is obviously you're in the public eye, and I'd imagine for some people, I mean, we're kind of used to it. We're used to the bit of criticism we get, or whichever, we're used to being around, and you get thick-skinned and used to it. But if you're,
it has to be, don't you?
Yeah. But if you haven't experienced that, and then you're sitting there and there's 40 to 95 people watching a game that are potentially criticising you in a chat room, or something else, it can be a bit off-putting. So I want to just say thanks to all those guys that were willing to go out there and put themselves out there, because it was really good fun to watch, and I all thought you played well. So there you go. I especially felt really bad for the Skaven gent that got I can't remember who it was now. It was a Skaven gent from the northeast, I think, got his Screaming Bell final transmuted, 6 on the 6 on the Gracia, 6 on the Bell, and it just all went bad for him. So I did feel sorry for him when that happened. So, but yeah, some good moments on camera as well. And if that's the first Masters event and that it was good, I'm really looking forward to things to come. So more on that next time, but I just wanted to mention that. And the final bit of news I want to tell you about is that for us, Heelanhammer, our Saucy section, the Super Awesome Wargamers Club, our premium content forum that gives you all our entire show archive and a lot of extra content, we recorded a best part 3-hour Empire review show. Unfortunately, Wayne couldn't make it, but it ended up being about the right decision because we did so much talking. A third guest would have made it even longer, but I got Scott the Boss Lines, who from the Black Sun podcast fame, big Empire general here in the UK, has won some events with them and done well for the last few years with them, and he is obsessed with is the only way of saying it, with the Empire. So we went through all the fluff, as much as every unit, combos, lists, tactics, shopping lists, lots of different things actually. So give that a listen, give us your feedback on what you thought, because we're going to hopefully roll out a lot more of these. So that's on the Saucy section for you. And that's pretty much the news. Anything else you can think of I've missed for this couple of weeks?
No, I don't think you have missed anything.
Good. That's the kind of guy I am. On to the topic. Okay, so the topic was inspired, and we're going to call it Hobby Time, or finding time for the Hobby Time. It was inspired by a listener question, and he emailed in, and I won't say his name because I haven't asked his permission, but he asked us, could we give him some tips on being a Warhammer dad? He's due to be a dad soon, and he wants to know how we, as parents and husbands, whatever, manage our hobby time. And I thought, well, that's pretty specific, so let's widen that slightly, and let's talk. I wanted to talk to you, Wayne, about how we go about finding time. Now, we've discussed this subject before, so a long time ago. So if you have heard this before, hopefully we'll bring some new things to the table. But this tends to be a popular question, as does, can you tell me I've got my first tournament coming up? That's probably the most common question we get asked. So I am aware this may have been touched on before. So how do we find our time? So how do you find your time, Wayne?
Well, me compared to you is a massive difference, isn't it? Because I'm just really fortunate at the moment, because at work I can do a lot of painting. I get a lot of downtime at work where I can actually do my hobby. And at home, my wife is at university, so she's a lot of the evening she's studying. So I get to, and a lot of that time she just wants to be sort of left alone to get on with stuff, which allows me to just do what I want to do. So the hobby. So I've really got it easy at the moment. So kind of work and the evenings when the kids are in bed, I can pretty much do what I want. But I know that's not the norm. That isn't the norm. And things will not at work. That's not going to change, because I'm always going to get the time that I do at work to do the painting and stuff. But it's kind of strange now, because I can't remember what it was like before, when I didn't. When I had to juggle everything and I didn't have. My job was different, and at one point I was working away, and sometimes I used to take paints away with me, but a lot of the time, because other stuff was going on when you're working away, it never got anything done anyway. So I've got a sort of load of stuff at the moment I've got to get done for Adepticon. But I should get it done. I should get it done quite easily, actually, because when I'm looking actually at the actual painting time alone at work that I'm going to get, coupled with the evenings that that I can get in, I should get it done no problems. I mean, I've probably got 50 to 60 models to paint.
In sort of what we're talking now, 5-6 weeks maybe when we're recording this. I don't know.
Yeah,
as a guess.
And I've got the whole army to rebase. Well, I say the whole army. I think the whole army bar 20 models that I've done. So, and it's at the moment the list I'm going to take is 294 models.
Jesus.
So yeah, it's a lot to do. But I can do it. There is the time there to do it, definitely.
And as you say, you're going to find time mainly through work to do that.
Yeah, because I mean, I work 12-hour shifts. I work days and I work nights. And on an average night shift, I get out of the 12 hours, I get 6 hours to do what I want. So that's I mean, obviously, when you're talking at the early hours of the morning, sometimes you just don't want to
do it. Yeah,
because you're tired. And then probably day shifts, I probably get around at least 4 hours out of 12 to do painting.
Yeah.
So in man hours, actual what I need to get done, I should get it done no problem just on work alone.
Yeah.
At work, but coupled with because what I'll probably do is I'll do the basing stuff at home. Because the lighting doesn't have to be great. And even though I've got a painting room, I tend to do my painting downstairs.
Well, this is this is a good point. It's something that then you're in the same room as your missus, even if she's watching TV. It's a more social
even if she's studying or she's doing her own thing, we still chat. Yeah. So while I'm painting and she's doing whatever she needs to get on with, we're still chatting. Whereas if I was upstairs in my hobby room, obviously we wouldn't be doing that. We'd just be in the same house in separate rooms, which I don't think is particularly healthy. I mean, painting room is really for like, if I've got a day off and, what's called a rest day, obviously between my shifts, and kids are at school, she's at university, I can do what I want to do. So I can spend I could spend the whole day in my hobby room just painting.
Yeah.
Obviously in the evenings, when she's home, and then no, I don't do that.
No. But then, like you, I try, and if I'm trying to say exactly the same situation at the moment, I'm trying to get a lot of stuff done for Adepticon with not a lot of time. I will manage my workload around stuff I can do with kids and the wife, stuff I need to do without them. And so I will generally build models in front of the TV with the missus. So I've got an example, a tray that it's a really weird thing. It's like a plastic tray with a bean bag sort of attached to it, and it's got a lamp on it and a little cup holder, and it's sort of it's just a tray with a light on it, and I quite often use that in front of the sofa to sort of build things while we're watching some random Midsummer Murders or something that I can half pay attention to whilst cleaning up and sort of listen to. I wouldn't do it with like football or something I wanted to watch, but I would do it with something else, and just chip away at it, really. That's the smallest bit. I mean, let's talk about why we're talking about misses. I mean, I'll tell you about necessarily how I try and do it, but let's talk about wives and significant others. So, boyfriends, girlfriends, wives, whatever, anybody else that's important to you. It can be a drain on your time. I think if something you don't appreciate necessarily when you're single.
What, the hobby or the wives?
Both, yeah. It can be, good one. No, it can be a bit of a significant drain on your hobby time, and that's all for the right reasons most of the time. And it's trying to balance it. I mean, from my point of view, I think the first thing is trying to any would-be husbands or anybody that's about to get into a long-term relationship, it's a good idea to explain to them how important your hobby is. I think most, I certainly imagine your wife does, and I know mine does, know how important it is to us. I mean, on top of all that, obviously we spend a lot of time behind a microphone and things, so we do get to and tournaments and all the other stuff, so we do spend significant time. But I do think making it known to your significant other that it is important to you and it is something you want to do, and these are the reasons why you want to do. Like you'd explain, I want to get this painted or whatever. Is the first step.
I think my wife sees the hobby as the other woman. Because it does take up a lot of my time, obviously, because the hobby in general, I do a lot of it, and obviously the show and everything else that goes with it, and tournaments and it does take up a lot of time, but I've always done it. On the whole time we've known each other, I've always done the hobby. I mean, when we first met, I was doing probably 10 to 14 tournaments a year, and now I do probably 2 or 3. Because life's changed. Obviously, when it was just the two of us, you have a lot of time. You've got time to burn, because you can still do all the stuff you want to do together, weekends away, this, that, and the other. But you get a lot of time where you're just at home. So it's easy. It gets really hard when you have kids, especially when you've got when you've got a newborn, because you don't get the time, because you're just constantly there's night feeds and this. So when you get a chance, you're sleeping. When you can, and obviously juggling work and everything that goes with it. So. And then obviously, as they get a bit older, you do tend to get. I think you manage your time better. Like before you have kids, you take it for granted. You think this is always how it's going to be. I'm always going to have this time to do what I want. and you do not appreciate how much time you don't get with kids.
Well, like you say, like a prime example for me would be like a lazy Sunday afternoon. You know, you get up in the morning about 10 or whatever, have your breakfast, speak to missus, watch a bit of TV. You think, this afternoon I'm going to do a bit of painting. Go sit down, do painting. Don't really happen like that when you've got small children around. It's,
no, not at all.
You know, if you could spend your whole day with Saturday with your wife or significant other, and then your Sunday, and then you're going to paint in the afternoon, it's probably a good trade. They're happy, you're happy. They can do whatever they're going to do in the afternoon, and it works. But when you've got a little, or a couple of little kids that, you know, are like, what are you doing? Can I have a drink? Can you help me on Mario? Can you do this for me? Can you play this? It just doesn't. It's not as easy, is it? So
when the kids ran, I mean, I never even attempt to do any hobby because there's always stuff going on. It just would be, it just doesn't happen.
No,
you know, I don't even try. So.
I mean, I will put models together with them on the odd occasion. Same deal. I can sit on the sofa, and I'm in the room with them and everything else, and it helps. Painting is a different story. Unless my wife's around and she specifically says to me, "You can go and have our painting if you want," because I'm around, then I won't. And that doesn't happen that much because I tend to work at least one of the weekend days a lot of times. So, but when it does happen, it's great because I find that. So how I get my time mainly is that people on Twitter will see I try and get up early. I try and do an hour of hobby before going to work. It doesn't always work because sometimes I'm tired or mainly like I want to watch football. Like this morning I got up and watched Match of the Day because I hadn't seen it and did a couple of emails and things for the show and you know wrote some bits for the show. But I'm still doing something related to the hobby a lot of the time. And just try and fit an hour a day in. And then I'm not with the kids. The only problem is, like you touched on, getting up early to do painting is okay, but you generally don't want to sit in front of you've got tired eyes, you feel tired, you don't necessarily want to go and sit and start mixing paint up. But it is quite a thing to force yourself to do. But I found once you get into routine, a bit like sleeping patterns really, without going too off topic, you know, if you read a lot about, you know, how to get to bed later and how to get up earlier and all the rest of it, it's all about routine, and you can get away on less sleep. I don't know how you do it with your job because your shift patterns constantly cause your sleep pattern to be all over the show. But
I basically suffer from jet lag, but because I have been doing it for so long, I don't really appreciate the fact that I suffer from that because the tiredness becomes the norm. And it's kind of weird. You never quite catch up on. I mean, they did a study. The kind of shifts that I do, they did a study on it. And if you, this isn't Warhammer related at all, but if I work over a period of, I think it's 30 years in the same job, it can knock up to 10 years off my lifespan.
Nice,
just because of the change in shifts and the lack of sleep. So, you know, but I'm trading those 10 years for I don't know. 5 or 6 armies.
Yeah, exactly. It's well worth it. Any hobbyist would tell you that. So, but yes, so I think it's all. So
if anyone doesn't think I die for the cause, they're wrong.
That's it. You'll cut in 10 years. You might get to paint 6 hours a day, but you do get 10 years left. So there you go. It makes up swings and roundabouts. So yeah, that's how I do it. I tend to get up and do an hour a day, and then I try and squeeze time in when I can, but it is hard. And I find the biggest thing is when you get up early, it's forcing yourself to get out of bed, knowing that you're getting up to do that and trying to have something to look forward to. And also trying to manage it so that you have things that you, like base coating's a good one. When you wake up first thing in the morning, doing some really important freehand on a banner is not something I'd ever entertain doing. That'd be something I want to do on a Sunday afternoon with a beer or whatever and just sit and just for an hour and do that one thing. So I tend to like base coating and paint by numbers in the morning because you can come in, you can stick music, your podcast in your ears or you know the news or whatever you want to watch and just get something done, you know, or glue some models together or something that's really simple. So that's how I try and do it. But the biggest thing I found is focusing it. You can do a lot of thinking and a lot of, I mean, you have hobby wobbles. We always talk about hobby wobbles on this show where you change what you want to do. Or I've had it massively, followers on Twitter or anybody else that had seen some of my comments. I've been trying to work out vampires or lizardmen for months for Adepticon, and I've pretty much decided that I'm going to take lizards. But I've got an awful lot of painting to do. But I'm sure I've wasted hours thinking about it and writing lists between the two, trying to work out what I could paint, what would be competitive for the models I could take and what I could transport on a plane and all the rest of it. If I just sat at my desk and painted for that time, I'd have done a load of models by now. So I think the key to it is less thinking, more doing. Just get on and do it. You know, you've bought these models. They're sitting on your desk. You want to use them at some point. Get on and paint them. Yeah. And that's the thing I've been trying to drum in myself. I've got, again, all hobbyists do it. I don't know anybody who's really... Not okay. there will be that one person who's per usual that doesn't do it. But the majority of hobbyists, I'd imagine, hoard. You buy stuff you want to do with all intentions of doing it, don't do it, and it sits in your cupboard, and it's just money that you can't use. It's not painted. One thing I want to try and do over the next year or so is trying to work through what I've got in the building. I really want to go and finish my Skaven, but I don't have any Skaven models other than what I've got, so I won't. I'll go and finish the Empire, because I've got most of the army sitting there in boxes that just needs. I've got a Brett army, all that kind of stuff. So I'd love to do Orc and Goblins again, but I haven't got 500 notes to drop on an army and the time to build it and everything. I'm better off, and all the space actually, I'm better off getting what I've got done, built in a box, ready to play, even if it's not painted, just so it's available and you can do. I quite fancy doing a bit here and a bit there, and I think that's the key to it, is enthusiasm. Especially if using the listener's original question, if you've got a newborn coming, and as Wayne touched on, you're going to be tired, your missus is going to be grumpy, there's a lot of other things to balance. The last thing you want to do is be forcing yourself to paint for a tournament, I think. I know a lot of people like the idea of having a goal. That's fine, and that's one of the notes I had here, is for some people that's a good thing. Setting yourself a goal, albeit a tournament or anything else. But I think, depending on your exact situation, that might not be a good idea. I think you should just take what you got painted, even if it's less optimal, or just keep rotating your stuff. Don't worry about a tournament. Try and borrow something. And believe me, I understand the whole. It's always better to play with your own models, I think. But if you're really going to under pressure and you really can't stand the sight of what you're painting, don't paint something else. Just pick something up and start painting for random fun, and eventually you'll have a big model collection. I think I've certainly suffered from that over the years, is trying to do things because I need it for something, rather than just sitting down at a desk and painting a model I like.
It was like the Warriors I got done. Well, I didn't get them finished, but when I go back to them, which I'm sure I will do at some point, I've done a big chunk of that army. They've done the Warrior block, the Chimera, the Demon Prince, a couple of chariots. The Juggers are all base coated and washed. So when I go back to it, I want to not redo, but I want to add a load of stuff to the basing. And a chunk of that army's done. So then I'll go back to it and maybe paint another couple of units. And then when I come back, and it will slowly build. Yeah. And the Tomb Kings, I'm going to go back to them at some point. I've probably got 3/4 of the army painted. So I'll go, I've got the models for it. I don't need to buy it. And then the Orcs and Goblins, which I sort of started on. But I've got a massive box of those, so I can go to those at some point as well. Go back to those, and then I've got the Lizard Men that I started, and I was painting the Croxigor unit, and then obviously I was thinking about Adepticon, so I've come off that. But I'd quite like a sort of, I really do, and I am going to do it. I want at some point, I want a sort of 1,500 points of every race, so I can play like Triumph and Treachery with any race.
If anybody wants any inspiration for that kind of thing, I would suggest checking out our forum, www.heelanhammer.com/forum. And you can see there's a painting blog section there. One of our listeners, Dave Fraser, I know we've mentioned it before, he's got a thread where he's been doing just that, trying to get, he's got big armies of stuff. And it's all quickly painted, but nice, neat, tidy, tournament legal, looks great. And it just, for me, it's like an inspiring thread, really, to look what you can do if you've got the time. And he's just had 2 young children, and he's got all that done. So it's definitely doable. I think it's just about prioritising your time and focusing, just thinking, I want to do this, I want to do that. And I think he tends to chop and change through different bits and pieces.
Yeah, and then he comes back to it and picks stuff up, doesn't he? But he did Skaven, Orcs and Goblins, Tomb Kings he's just finished, I think.
Demons, I think. Possibly even a Wood Elf as well in there.
Yeah, Wood Elves, Demons.
Yeah. Loads of stuff.
And he's just churning his way through loads of stuff, isn't he?
Yeah. Don't get me wrong, there's different standards you can choose to do it to, but if you just want to get stuff done, and I think that's the best way, is get something out on the table that you can take. If you're a tournament goer or a club goer and you just want to play with something painted, do something to a minimum nice, basic, neat and tidy standard. This is me. This is what I should be doing. And then worry about everything else, rather than having nothing of anything done, and then concentrate on just going back and forth. So yeah, I think that's the key, is pick something that you're keen to do, and then focus your time, and then just try and squeeze in every now and then. I think a lot of time could be wasted. My biggest time waster is Twitter, right? I know we all love it, but Twitter, Facebook, the forums, it's very easy. You think, I've got 45 minutes, not do anything, I'll just sit down and do this. You could be putting a model together in that time, or a couple of models. Yep. It doesn't sound like a lot, but why not? If you've got it set up to, I know a lot of people do it. I've got it. We're sitting here now. I've got a tray for painting. I've got a tray for building, and there's nothing stopping me picking that tray up and doing that for half an hour.
I think focus is probably not for all people, obviously, but I imagine for the majority of people, focus is the thing. I know that if I could focus better on projects, I would have at least 3,000 points of every army. I know that if I could just focus on a project and see it through, I would easily have that done. But I can't. I get distracted, and then even when I'm working on a project, I start, I get distracted within a distraction to actually go in a different direction, like maybe a different conversion idea or color scheme, or just, you kind of got an idea for a list, and then you start painting it, and you have a couple of games and realise that's not going to work at all. So then you just divert, and then stuff you were working on just ends up in a box and never sees the light of day. But all those hours you spent getting into that point is just wasted. Whereas guys, like Ben Johnson, where he'll do an army, he'll start off with his kind of tournament army he wants to play, and then once he's got to that stage, he'll just add. So he'll add all the units to it. I mean, he did it with his orcs and goblins, his Skaven, and now his demons. Where he's just, and then eventually he's got like everything, everything in the army.
That's the way to do it. And again, it depends if you're a tournament goer or you're not. But if you're a club gamer, that's ideal because you can have a different list every week and you can field it all.
Yeah.
Tournament goers might think, oh well, what's the point? Because you're never going to use those less competitive options. But so many events in the UK. I mean, we were talking about it I was talking about it with Ben Curry from the Bad Dice podcast. There was 9 tournaments in the UK this weekend, just gone. 9 you could choose to go to here in the UK, which is insane. And the amount of different comps that you can play under that force you to take suboptimal choices. Swedish is a good example. You've got, there's tournaments that are aimed at the softer people. You will always be able to use that at a tournament if you want to.
Yeah.
I saw a Gathering of Might, a tournament that you and I are intending to attend at some point because it's one of the ones I've never managed to get to. That's really popular. It's 1,500 points, and I saw the pictures, all the best painted and thing. And there were some crazy, wacky armies at 1,500 points, but people took them because they wanted to. It was no comp, take what you want. And
the attitude changes at 1,500 points, doesn't it? Because it's kind of like
not for everybody, but for some people.
No, not for everyone, but it's almost like it's not serious Warhammer. People. I mean, do people get excited about winning a 1,500 point tournament? Has it got the same kudos? I don't think it has. I don't think there's got as much.
It has.
I think
there's an argument it's a better game. A lot of people.
I've always said 1,500 points is a better game because I honestly believe that it is a better game.
That's another discussion for another.
That's another,
So that is true. My main point with that is there is nothing wrong with wanting to paint random models. I'd really like to paint a cockatrice because I like the model.
Yeah,
but it's not even on my list at the moment because I'm still mucking around with trying to get a competitive tournament army painted.
Yeah.
So. But yeah, I think it's say focus. It doesn't have to be on one project. It just has to be on doing something, not thinking about doing something. And I can't be alone with this. I'm sure I've spoken to a lot of people that do it where, you just sit there and think about it, or you get a box of models out and think, I'm going to do that tomorrow. You've wasted half hour thinking about it and get your models out, and then you change your mind tomorrow and you put them all back in the box. It's half an hour lost. It's that real crunching down on your time. I mean, my wife always says to me, she finds it funny how in life I manage to always seem to do what I want to do, and I very much think a lot of it is focus. Like, you go, I am doing this, and it's going to be here, and I'm going to do it, and you just get on with it and do it. And but that's not an easy thing necessarily to do. But I think, and for me, like the hobby is one of the final. The podcast comes above the hobby, so the podcast will get and do. But it might be if I need to find time somewhere, it would be the hobby that drops off the bottom. But generally, I think if you're in a nice stable routine and you can get it done, that's the way to do it. So a few other bits that I thought I'd touch on because it is different for everybody. Now, you and I don't really include our wives in doing it, do we? They hate the fact, I think, that they know a lot about the hobby. But for some people, I've seen their wives playing. I've seen podcasts with wives painting models. A couple of guys down our club, significant others, paint their models for them. So there is a lot out there, but that is one particular way. If you're comfy doing that and you like it, I think, to get more time is involve them.
Yep.
Personally, I quite like the fact that I like spending time with my wife, but it's quite nice to have something different. I can basically play with my mates. So, but for some people that works. So that's definitely definitely an option. I like to play games with my wife, not Warhammer, but games generally because I like to wind her up. But that's about it. I wouldn't necessarily play Warhammer. We have had a game once, so I wanted to share how it worked, but. You ever played Warhammer with your missus? I don't even need to ask.
I'd die.
I think she'd die.
Imagine that. She'd come home and I've got the table set out, 2 armies there.
All right, love. Yeah.
All right, we're going to have a nice romantic evening. We're going to
candlelit
throw
Warhammer
a few
game.
Dice and have a bit of a Warhammer. Yeah, then I'd hear her packing her bags and the front door going.
Exactly. We'll talk about candlelit Warhammer games in a minute, actually. But
that was awesome. Forgot about that.
But so Yeah, that is true. But yeah, I think, and again, it's trading not only your hobby time but also the gaming time. So your big problem is you say you don't have enough game time, do you? You don't play enough games on the table. But again, I think that's a case of, I mean, we have slight problem because this what we are doing now takes an evening or 2 evenings or whatever, an evening a week gone. Yeah. But let's say we didn't. We could quite easily get. I mean, I still get a game in a week. You tend to. The minute you're flying on. Getting a game in most weeks.
More games. I want to get as many games as I can in before Adepticon.
I mean, and I think that's the other thing is you've got to balance the two. If you need to paint for a tournament, gaming, whilst is important to the tournament, if you've got to prioritise which one's your goal, is it playing or is it, do you physically need to get the models on the table? If you do, practicing is not a good idea because you're going to go to the tournament and lose points on painting if it's that way inclined or whatever. But I think, again, going back to the whole situation of significant others' kids' life, I think it's a case of managing it with them. When are you going out this week? I mean, you and I do it quite a lot, don't we? Sort of managing the missus. It's like, if my missus is out, I might phone you up and say my missus is out. Do you want to come around for a game, or vice versa, or whatever? And I think it's managing the time when they're out, so you're not wasting an evening as such.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and I've got to sort of juggle it around my shifts as well because if I'm working a night shift, like for example, it's Tuesday night now, Wednesday night I'm working, Thursday night I'm working. So if we would say, so obviously Tuesday night, so I'm here Tuesday night, I'm working tomorrow night, I'm working Thursday night. If I had a game Friday night, that's 4 nights in a row where I haven't seen my wife, I've seen her, but it's been when the kids are around. So you're always kind of like, you don't really, not properly, you don't have any adult time.
No. Although I always find it funny that most of that adult time involves normally sitting in front of a TV and not speaking anyway. But that's,
It can be like that, it can be like that.
I know that's what I do.
But sometimes it's like that whole, you're just together and you just want to chill out, because, juggling working kids and everything that goes with it is stressful. And sometimes you just want to just mong out in front of the TV and just not really think about anything.
Midsummer Murders, yeah.
I'm not really into that, but if that's your thing, that's your thing,
Yeah. You're more into sort of, sparkly vampires, isn't
it? It's all right. You're 10 years younger than me, Dan. And you just sometimes you act like you're 10 years older.
I know. Yeah.
Midsummer Murders.
Midsummer Murders is amazing. Anyway, if you're international, you never see Midsummer Murders.
Don't do it.
Get it? It's awesome. You'd never go to a rural British town ever because you'd probably get
murdered. You wouldn't move there. No. Everyone dies.
Exactly. Badger's Drift or whatever it is. I love it. It's always Badger's Drift. Anyway, so Badger's Drift. That's a show name. I think there's a lot of things you can do about it, but it is managing it. Now, the other thing as well might sound silly, but I tend to trade time with the wife. So let's talk about events briefly.
This is funny with you because you've got like this bartering system where you kind of, it makes my missus always makes her chuckle when you buy your missus off, don't you?
Yeah.
You say, well, if I do this, I'll do this. I'll give you this. I'll give you this much money to spend, or you can do this, or you can do that.
Yeah.
And mine's just as simple. I'm thinking about going away this weekend, and she'll just look at me and she'll either say yes or no. Usually no, and then I have to kind of grovel and then I'm like, get around it. But that's just how it works with us.
Yeah. Well, like I say, this is the other thing is everybody's different. Yours tends to be. Bargaining tends to work, I think, in a lot of relationships. But like yours is normally you need to get like some DIY done before you go or something like that, isn't it? Or
I got a game the other night.
No, got him.
Right. I knew that if I said I wanted a game of Warhammer because I was going to the club that week as well.
Yeah, you played Thursday, Friday that week, didn't you?
I played Thursday, Friday. So, because I was playing on the Thursday, I knew if I said I'm going around to your house for a game of Warhammer because I wanted to do it, she'd have been like, not too happy about that. What about us, right? So I didn't do that. What I did was I said...
Got wise to it.
I said to my mister, I said, Dan can't make it to the club on Thursday because he I think Sam's going, your wife's going out, so he can't go. So he's got a sad on. So he just texted me and said, he said, would you let me, meaning her, would she let me go round to your house to play Warhammer?
Yeah.
Right? So it wasn't me asking, it wasn't me that wanted to play Warhammer. It was you wanted to play Warhammer. And straight away she just laughed and she went, okay.
Winner. I know.
See? Played her. Proper played her.
I just got this text.
I hope she never listens to this because I'll be a dead man.
We should just post up the text in the show notes. It was something like, she said yes. It was quality. But yeah, it is true. Everyone does different things. It's a bit of a joke, but generally if I want to go away, it's I have to make the time up in spending it with family, which is fair enough. It'd be like, well, if I want to go to ETC or Adepticon, we need a family holiday. And for me as a self-employed person, effectively, that can be hard work, but it's something that you have to make do with if you're going to do it. But sometimes I think trading time, or as Wayne just eloquently described, the way you approach the subject and everything else can make a big impact, I think, sometimes on your time. We're not trying to teach you tricks of how to dupe your wife here or whatever, or a significant other, but there is some tactics and some politics to be done with all of this, I'm sure, in any relationship.
Sometimes a little white lie can go a long way.
Yeah, exactly. You heard it here from Wayne, the game, in all senses. So there you go. So I think that's probably about it on that. I think the key, though, for me, is trying to do something that you're looking forward to doing and trying to do it little and often. Some people like hobby binges. I mean, like you say, you might sit there for 3-4 hours. Personally, my bum hurts and my back hurts after about an hour and 15 minutes, and I can't be bothered anymore. So I try and do a little bit a day. Don't get me wrong, if I'm into something, sometimes it can be frustrating if I've only got an hour. I think, I could just do sitting here for another hour and finishing this when you're really enjoying it. But I think, trying to do it often and concise. I also think sometimes that your surroundings are important as well. So, not having a cluttered desk full of stuff, just having a nice, neat, this is the project you are doing at the moment. Don't think about anything else. Just get this done and dusted. A lot of things go into it, but you just got to get yourself, I think, in an environment where you look forward to sitting at your painting desk. The same as anything
I think that's
else.
what works for me at work and when I paint downstairs, because I pack my stuff away afterwards, obviously, and if I'm taking stuff to work, it goes back in the car. So I'm always starting at work with a clean environment. And when I paint downstairs, it always starts as a clean environment because I'm setting it up. Whereas my hobby room's a mess. So for me to sit down and paint there, it's kind of like I have to go. If it was just like half an hour's painting, I wouldn't bother.
No,
because it would take me that long to sort the table out. So I don't bother. So the whole kind of painting downstairs and painting in at work, it just works really well for me.
Yeah. And I think that's it. So you say it's all part of it, and you obviously look forward to getting your paints out and stuff, and that's the key. I think is looking forward to it. And if you're not happy, have a break from it. Have a break from a little bit, do some other stuff, and get some other life stresses out the way, and then come back to doing it.
I mean, my motivation at the moment, obviously, with Adepticon, I want to get the build I want to take. I want to get it finished for Adepticon, but I also, when we get back from Adepticon, I want to start my new army, and I've been collecting stuff for this new army. I won't go talk about it now. We'll get to that, when I get when I start it. But I've been buying and collecting stuff for it, and I'm really itching to get on with it. So, but I know that there's no point in starting anything now because I have to get an army finished for Adepticon. So I've got that, get to that point, get it done, get the army finished, and then when we get back, because I know I'm going to be, when we get back, I'm going to be really pumped about painting as well, because we're going to see all the armies we've never seen before, all the really cool stuff that's going to be Adepticon, all the display boards and everything else goes with it. So we're going to come back and it's going to be a massive lift for wanting to paint and wanting to do hobby, and I know that's going to happen. So I want that to coincide with me starting a new project.
Definitely sounds like a plan. So there you go. Hopefully that's given you some tips on how to deal with your hobby time, and let us know your tips if you've got any out there and you think we've missed anything massive. It's a big, wide-ranging topic. Lots of people have different opinions and things. Please send us an email, dan@heelanhammer.com, or Wayne at heelanhammer.com as well. Brilliant. On to the next bit.
Are we sitting comfortably? Then we shall begin. The story of the week.
Okay, so the story of the week. Again, it features a game between Wayne and I. We've played it quite a lot recently. And it was a rematch. Lizard versus Skaven again. We talked a little bit last time about Heelan, the fury of Skaven. And of course, the fury of Quango. Now, the fury of Quango... There is a Fury of Quango update during this story. But so Wayne and I played again similar things. We were practicing for Adepticon. So again, the lists aren't really important to the story, but there was a sort of stereotypical Teto Echo and Death Lizard list led by me, and you had a fairly standard sort of Skaven Bell list with some toys. And again, interesting, really. It was an interesting game. It was actually a really good game. I thoroughly enjoyed it. We had a lot of combat from early on. Heelan, the A-bomb, got nuked. Yeah, he got nuked by a beam called down from Chotek and just nuked him off with a Bastillodon, didn't he? So that was quite cool.
Yeah, I kind of, my bottom lip came out, didn't it? And I sort of put the A-bomb to one side. And I was like, I'm fed up with the A-bomb. Just gets killed too easy. And he'll say, no, you got to take it. I was like, yeah, but it just dies. I'm just giving points away every time. So,
yeah, that's a discussion we've been having on a bit every other day basis, haven't we, really? Is it worth it or is it not? I still think it is. You're still 50-50. But bottom line is play test it, we think, don't we? And see if it matters. So yeah, interesting one. So the game was quite interesting because I thought same deal was going to happen next time. Your magic phase is going to continually wear me down, and at some point you're just going to kill the Slan. And it looked that way early on. You got a big 13th off, 24 Saurus when you killed 17 in the turn, didn't you?
Yep.
Double 6, dead. Suddenly that unit disappeared. The fury of Quango Scarvet on foot got charged side and everything else, and Quango come up with, was it a 6 again or some stupid amount, and killed a lot of stuff that he was playing with, and he held there for ages. And then the one turn I think he lost by 1 or so, he was losing by like a couple, and then he just completely spanned and he died, got ran down.
Yeah, it was the turn when we thought, he'll stay.
He's
going
to finish it off
got
now,
enough models left, and and then you just rolled really bad, didn't you?
Yeah, it's just all 1s and 2s and died. So that was I did think he'd been pushing his luck anyway, but yeah, he finally died. So Quango Man went down, but his Saurus unit he was fighting with also went down pretty quick to magic. And one thing I did want to talk about is I mentioned last show that about skink cohorts, and I made a throwaway comment about they're the best thing in the book. It started a thread on the Warhammer forum that did. So I forget sometimes that when we make throwaway comments, people listen and take those obviously as read. So I didn't mean they were necessarily the best thing in the book, because you can argue the Slan is the best thing, Teto Echo, Scarvets, whatever. Well, not necessarily Teto Echo, but Scarvets, Slans, they're probably the best thing in the book.
Yeah.
What I meant is, to clarify this, I meant that I've really enjoyed using cohorts of 20 skink with javelins just on their own with command, because they're better in combat than people give them credit for. They can stand and shoot. They can shoot. I mean, you saw in our game 20 poison shots from javelins is pretty effective, isn't it? And if you can get 3 lots of that or something, that is pretty good. So, and I'm not alone in this. I didn't come up with this idea. It's a lot of more experienced 8th edition Lizardman players than me have been using it for some time. But yeah, that's what I meant by that, and I think that was cleared up by Rafaza, who's a sort of internet media himself, writes a lot about Lizardmen and his experiences, and I think he cleared that up on the Warhammer forum. But yeah, that's what I meant. But they were good in this game, weren't they? The cohorts.
They were very good. It's that whole armor save and then the parry save. You just kept rolling them.
Yeah. It was pretty good. I mean, I was fighting against strength 3 sort of rats and stuff, but still.
Yeah. But you still, even say you still, it just got annoying after a while.
And then I had the +1 leadership banner on the Slan, so even though you were hammering the skink units that were quite wide, you couldn't break them, could you? As only when I moved back, they died eventually. So.
I must admit, when we got to the end of turn 3, I thought I got you, because you started backing off then, didn't you? Because you was running out of stuff.
Yeah.
And the Doom Wheel went into the Temple Guard and kind of lasted longer than it should have, really, and made a bit of a mess of them.
Yeah, it killed 9 Temple Guard over 2 rounds. But I think the impact 6 obviously helped, but 9 Temple Guard out of 20 odd. So when I came out, I think Cutler was a cut of Warp Lightnings or some bits and pieces, and I had nowhere to go. So I was actually thinking that that the game was over. At one point, I spread all my models out and thought, well, you can 13th some of it, and then you just didn't happen for you, did it?
Yeah,
you didn't roll enough dice.
3 turns, didn't I? Where just the magic phase was literally your Slan and Teto Echo and everything that just split up to kind of create multiple targets. And I thought all I need is one. All I wanted to get was your Slan. I wasn't really. I just wanted just get your Slan, and that was it. And I had 3 magic phases where just nothing happened. I just couldn't.
You didn't meet the casting value on one. You had 4 dice on the other, and I don't know what happened in the last one. I think you just didn't happen. Whatever.
Yeah, I think it was low again. It was low again with the amount of casting dice I had, and it just didn't happen. It was really frustrating actually, because I thought that was a really good opportunity for me to smash you.
Yeah.
Not just slightly win the game, but actually get a real big win out of it. And it just didn't happen.
No, because the funny thing is, if it had happened, you had 3 magic phases. If 2 of them had happened, you'd have won 20-0 near enough. It was like, you could have got Teto and his mates in one go and the Slan in the other go with a Temple Guard unit, and that would have been the end of it. And there was nothing I could do about it, but it just didn't happen. So, and actually, both games have been very tight like that, and could have ended up fairly drawish. I mean, I ended up, I think, winning 14. I think in the end, 14-6 on a sort of 20-0 tournament scoring system. And I thought that was fairly fortuitous, really, because I had like 2 Temple Guard left and a Slan and stuff all in the corners trying to keep points. But no, it was a really good game. But the highlight of this game was that we played the last turn under iPhone light, didn't we, in a candle, basically.
Yeah, we had a power cut.
Yeah, and we were just trying to finish it off. So, but yeah, that was quite interesting.
It's quite funny because I had work the following day, didn't I? I had to get up at 4:30, and it was about 11, about 11 o'clock. Yeah. And so we literally finished the last turn off, didn't we? But then I had to pack my Skaven horde away.
And we both killed loads of each other's models.
Yeah, it was a mess. The table was a mess. There was models everywhere. And then I just looked at it and thought, I've got to pack this away and I can't actually see what I'm doing.
Yeah.
And then literally, as we got to I think it was about the last 10 models to pack away, the lights came back on.
Yeah, exactly. It was they finally just, when it didn't matter, they appeared. But the other thing I just wanted to mention on that really was what always interests me, and I was interested to find out your thoughts on this, is have you found, because you've been playing a lot more regularly with the same list, have you found that you're starting to get your head around a little bit more the long game, how the army works in the long game?
Yeah, I found over a period of 4 games where when we played the first time, I was getting quite sort of frustrated with wanting to do, because normally the lists I play are quite aggressive, even though they're not good lists as such, but they do play quite aggressive, and I do kind of push stuff forward. And obviously with the list now, it's really about holding stuff up in the magic phase. So you've got to play into sort of like turn 4, 5, 6 for it really to come about and happen. And I'm used to sort of pushing it from sort of turn 2, 3. So that at first I found a bit kind of, because you kept saying just be patient, and I'm not really a patient player.
No, yeah, you were very much like, I can't see what's happening, and I'm thinking, oh my god, turns 5 and 6, I'm going to lose everything to 13th and Plague, which was your combo you've been
which I was, because I'm running Plague at the moment, which I just think is so much better than Ruin. So doing that, and then we had that game, and then I had like 2 games, and then we had another game, and it was totally different. When we played our second game, totally different. I was kind of like, no, just I got sort of like, I say like annoyed or frustrated. There were certain things like when I think all I need is a 6 dice power phase, you know what I mean? And I got 3 or got 4.
And I was all things like I kept one magic phase. I think you had 7 dice. I had 9 dispel dice because I rolled 3 channels on the channeling stuff, combo and stuff like that.
The amount of dice you generate is just if you roll, and it's just ridiculous.
Conversely, my magic phases were just destroying you, weren't they? Like I had a couple of 12 dices with Teto Echo where I was rolling low and then re-rolling the ones, and they were rolling high.
The ones,
getting the dice back from the death on a couple of them, and just like, pew, 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 just machine gunning stuff. So
because there was one turn where you were totally on the back foot. Then you got that 12 dice magic phase, and I got an absolute kick in that turn. Didn't I? Really did got an absolute kick in that turn. And then my following turn, I goes, well, that's all right. I just need an average dice roll on a thing, and I can pop a few spells. I can pick up the last of the Temple Guard from maybe a couple of cheap warp lightnings, and then go for say like because I had a power scroll. No, I'd used the power scroll earlier.
Yeah, I think you got the scroll out, power scroll 13th, didn't you?
Yeah, and then but there was definitely lots of options there for me to do a lot of damage. It just didn't happen.
No,
that was the kind of like I thought, well, next turn, then it just didn't happen.
No, but it was. I just thought it was an interesting point to pick up on, because I know, as I say, the equivalent of 3 games that led up to this 4th game, I think certainly made a difference on your understanding of the game, how the game would pan out.
Yeah,
the experience taught you that actually, once the magic defense is burnt down and their units are getting smaller, it's a real big chance of a couple of big wins out of this. So in the right matchup, I mean, obviously if you're playing against a lot of monstrous cavalry or something, those tactics don't necessarily work, but then that's this thing we always talk about, which is the knowledge of the matchup is so important. You've played lizards a lot now. You've played lizards a lot. You played me a couple of times. You played Zach down there. You've got an idea, and they're different styles of lizard army as well, about how to play that matchup, and how your magic will affect if you just sit there basically. But then small things make a difference. Like I had pure death on the Slan in that game, and I picked up all your characters basically by the grace, didn't I? With death snipes that I didn't have in the first game, and that was really the difference between that and it was actually almost an identical game in a lot of ways. Trading points. The only difference was I got all your characters and you got none of mine. So, you got Fury of Quango, man. But yeah, so interesting. But I think anything else? Any other thoughts on that particular game?
Yeah, I mean the standard build with the A-bomb and a Doom Wheel. I'm going to start running a list where I don't take either of those. It's literally, it's just like 3 blocks of slaves, 2 blocks of clan rats, storm vermin with the bell, 2 big blocks of giant rats, and then two lots of gut runners with the usual kit. 2 cannons.
Yeah.
Because I found in a lot of the games, usually by turn 2, 3, you're chasing 400 points because you've lost the bell. You've lost the A-bomb and the Doom Wheel. And that's pretty standard. Most games you lose them very early on and you're chasing 400 points. And without any gain. I mean, there is the argument to say, but people are shooting at that because then they're not shooting at your grace here, right? Fair enough. That's a valid point. but you're still chasing. You're always chasing those points. Whereas the big blocks of giant rats, even though the very, very few people field them. In fact, I'm sure there are people that field them, but I don't think I've actually seen anyone else that fields them.
I wouldn't say competitive tournament gamers I'd seen rocking the top tables that ever got units of 30 giant rats in 7th edition. So
yeah,
there will be that one guy. He's always there. Yeah, we'll probably get an email about it. But
me.
Yeah. No, he said top tables.
Oh, yeah, sorry, I missed that bit. But I just think I don't know. It depends on the matchup, because obviously if I get ogres or warriors of chaos, then you're going to miss the A-bomb and you're going to miss the doom wheel. But if you're playing a lot of elf armies, those giant rats, then suddenly, because obviously, they're going to go first and you're going to take a bit of a kick in, but you've got big blocks there. So once you've taken that initial thing, then you've got sort of 3 ranks of giant rats and the Pat Master. You've got sort of, 20 attacks coming back. Against elves, they're pretty squishy.
Definitely.
Now, if the bell does its thing and you get like +1 attack, or you get the whole re-roll, something simple like re-roll leadership test, including break test at 24 inches, because the rats are running wide. Little things like that, that makes a big difference. Because I've found as we're playing, when I remember to ring the bell, ringing the bell can actually make quite a difference. Subtle differences, but in the grand scheme of things, they can actually make a difference to the game.
It's like a free bonus as long as you don't roll triples and doubles and stuff repeatedly. You're fine, aren't you?
Absolutely. So they can affect the game, and it's a fun bit. I'm finding the bell, that side of it, the fun bit, because you don't know what you're going to get.
No,
some random element.
And you're hoping scorch most games, but
which is great, again, great against the elven armies. And with what's going on, there are more dark elf and more high elf armies floating around. Don't get me wrong, there's still a lot of demons obviously in Warriors of Chaos,
but there is a bit of a shift.
And there's a couple of tricks in the army. Well, there's one trick in the army which no one's running, which was awesome in that game against Simon, which is the Warp Storm Scroll. Which is there's a bounce spell, power level 5. You everything, any fly within 24 inches takes D6 strength 6 hits. Now, I can't really understand. I know it's like a character slot because it's a 50
It's the arcane slot and it's a one use. But
but I think in the current meta of the game with the amount of flies, if you're playing demons, that could be a greater demon like the
Chicken Change,
Lord of Change, and Screamers. A lot, most of the demon players taking Screamers, Furies. If they're all in on a certain time and you manage to get your magic phase just right, and you pop that, and you get to use it, it can do a load of damage.
We'll give you an example of your phase when you get big dice. You've been going things like big dice plague. Okay, they lob all their dice. Yeah, okay. Well, then it's like cut the dice plus Warpstone Power Scroll 13th. Oh my God, scroll. Gone. Oh right, I've got 2 dice left. Whatever. There's my Warpstone Scroll, and it's closed list. You don't see it. I mean, you've now told several thousand people about it, but
people will forget.
Won't they?
They won't.
Obviously, when you tell me about what you got on your list, and I'll forget in 2 weeks' time, so it makes no difference. But
brilliant against Simon. When I played Simon, he's got 2 Skycutter chariots, 2 Skycutter chariots and Frost Phoenix, and so I'm waiting, and he hasn't got a scroll in this list that he's playing. He's playing under Lightning Strike comp, the tournament I think he's going to this weekend.
Luckily, this is coming after Lightning Strike, so you're okay.
Oh yeah. So
on the same day,
and I've had to change. I've made my list to that comp as well, so my list is slightly different. So he's got no dice left, and I go right. Warpstorm Scroll. What's that do? I said D6 strength 6 hits everything. Killed both the Skycutter chariots, and then knocked a couple of wounds off the Frost Phoenix. And I just sat there and I just felt vindicated. Told you.
No.
It was a great moment. I'm hoping for that. When you get that moment where you get insanely lucky with the dice, right? But you pop it and it kind of kills, I don't know, finishes off a unit of, say, plague drones, kills the chicken, takes out a unit of Furies all in one turn and just changes the game.
Yeah, well, the thing with Skaven, as you well know, and we've said it multiple times on the show, is it's not about does it kill it outright. It's about does it do 2 wounds, and then the Warp Lightning Cannon, the Warp Lightning, the Gutter Runners, the Rats, everything else does the rest over the 3-4 turns later, and then it's dead in it. So it's that kind of thing. But yeah, you're right. I think that it is in the current thing. You'd arguably, if you're looking for a slot, you might say, well, okay, let's not take the Brass Orb, or let's not take this or that, just to fit it in. So, but yeah, I'm sure the listeners would be interested to know. I'm certainly interested to know how it plays out. But as you're right, with a lot of large flyers, chimeras, and all the rest of it kicking around, it could be potentially, brilliant.
Terrorgeist, Fargeist.
Yeah,
So it's good.
Most armies have got them these days. There's a lot of it kicking around.
Yeah,
so.
gyrocopters.
Yeah, well, there you go.
You think
6 of them.
3 gyrocopters come flying in, you go, right, D6 strength 6 hits on all 3 of those.
Yeah.
It's got the potential to be really good and getting a lot of the matchups.
Yeah.
So, and I quite like the fact that, I'm sure there's other people using it, but I don't,
Yeah, but they haven't got a podcast, mate. So
I don't know anyone. I don't know anyone else who's using it.
The Wayne Kemp scroll.
It's not a common. Yeah.
Doing a Kemp. Yeah.
Yeah.
There you go. We coined it. There you go. People spread the word.
I'm a leader, not a follower.
Hashtag trendsetter. Yeah. Okay, cool. Well, we'll leave the story of the week there and go straight into the war room.
This is the war room.
Okay, so a question from a listener. Very simple, straightforward one, this. But there's a few considerations to talk about. He asked, how would we kit out a vampire bus? Now, a bus, for those of you who don't know, is generally a load of vampire characters or, characters from the Vampire Counts book inside a unit of significant number of Black Knights or Blood Knights. You don't see it very often with Blood Knights anymore, but it could be done. And this is an army that regular listeners will know I play quite a lot, and you've certainly played against quite a lot. This particular army. I think there's a couple of considerations to look at when you're writing this. The first one is how are you going to deal with magic. So, in a tournament sense, you quite often play double banishment empire that have got high strength 7, strength 8 banishments that can destroy it, gateways, death magic, lots of different things that can cause it a problem, and it's a concern. So, magic resistance would be something you'd want in there. I think you look at how do you deal with things in the game at the moment that will stop your unit being able to gain points and move freely. So you're looking at, can you kill a demon prince? Can you kill all the change? Can you deal with a big beast of army? Can you deal with the steam tank? You need all those. You need the ability to deal with all of those things probably in a unit. Now, normally that falls in the place of a Vampire Lord because a Vampire Lord will kill the majority of those. The one thing he might struggle with, and this is a Vampire Lord with Red Fury, Infinite Hatred, or Quick Blood as it's called now, Quick Blood, Red Fury, the Ogre Blade, and then you've got to start thinking about other things. So, for example, against a Demon Prince, he's got high initiative, so you're not going to get your rerolls.
Yeah.
Potion of Speed, 5 points, you can fit it in. Gives you the option. That helps you deal with the Demon Prince. Other Trickster's Shard on a model in base contact. Again, you need another character to have it, but that certainly helps the Demon Prince matchup and the Lord of Change. The Lord of Change is a different problem itself because with the Eternal Blade, possibly with the Always Strikes First, depending on how your tournament or local gaming group play that combo, when you don't roll it naturally, that can be a problem. So you'd want something perhaps like the Night Shroud, which means that all magic weapons in base contact don't work. It's that kind of options. So you got to think about those kind of things. The other one is is all about that. If you think about the game turns, you've got this one killer unit that's going to kill most things in the game, but you've only got 6 turns. The first 2 of those are probably moving, so that leaves you 4 turns if you can't fight in theirs. Is delivering it. So you've got to look at how you build the rest of the army. Now, fortunately, this is the main problem I see with this as VC. It's a very solid list, the bus list, but your support units are quite expensive and reasonably fragile, and your core is effectively just models on a board. They don't do anything, really, if you're building a bus army. So generally, the most competitive way is normally to have, say, 3 units of zombies and a unit of skeletons, and you just span the board with dogs, bats, and things, and just block things up to make sure that your bus can't get redirected. That's the general way of playing it, but it's worth thinking about how you're going to do that. You might find that single spirit hosts do it for you, or you like lots of bats, or maybe bigger bat units, maybe more dogs. I've seen armies over the years with 7 or 8 dog units that just spam to get in the way. There's a lot of ways of doing it, but that's a consideration. And the other way of dealing with small units, and I've used it a few times, is you have a vampire in the unit that uses the terror special ability. You don't see it very often, but it was a sort of an old school, almost 6th edition tactic of having a terror causer in there. But you use a terror causer because people put warlocks out there at leadership 5 or skink units at leadership 5. A lot of those things, terror causer can throw their double flee off and suddenly you're through and there's a potential gap. So it's finding the points for that, though, it can be very tight. So that's there. So I'd say the items that you're looking at, really, because this was the question, is what sort of build is. For me, you'd have magic resistance 2, magic resistance 3 if you could afford it, but generally you don't find that. You could tag, say, magic resistance 2 with the scroll of shielding. So that gives you, you've always magic resistance 2, but if you don't get it irresistibly, you've got a dispel scroll somewhere in the army to shut, say, a banishment or a gateway down. If you don't, you can play your scroll of shielding on your MR2, and you can have a 3-up ward against it. A 2-up ward against it. So they're good options. So scroller shielding is obviously mentioned there. The Night Shroud, for the reasons we said, it makes it very eye-win in some things that could kill the Vampire Lord potentially. And the fighting stuff. So you have a Trickster's Shard, your Lord that's kitted out to kill the world, because he is probably the most killy thing in the game other than the Lord of Change. But I'd say that probably more reliable, the Vampire Lord, in a lot of ways. So, yeah, those kind of items. I think the other considerations you've got to think about is, Lookout says, have you got enough knights? Because that's the easiest way. You've nearly done it to me several times, haven't you? A couple of lucky walk lightning shots and your general's dead. So make sure you've got enough knights. I'd say you're looking at 12 plus would be my decent amount of knights. Bringing back models is a consideration in the Vampire army. It's quite an important bit. So if you've only got one level 4 caster and supporting casters on death or something, chances are you can't really raise models because you've got one raise to shut down. If you've got the general and say a level 2 supporting vampire or something like that, or a necro, it's 2 raises. It's a lot harder to shut down if you've got other spells. So that's worth thinking about as well. And use of your casters in a vampire bus. You've seen me do it, Wayne. I've done it plenty of times. You can blow them up. You will blow them up, and you will blow knights up quite often. So you've got to think about what formation you run your bus in. Is there a downside to running 8 wide? So you've got two ranks of 8, or a 7 and an 8. I quite often run early doors. If it's not a problem, I'll run it wide with the wizards on the end of the line, so that then they're only killing a couple of people. There's those they're more tactic based, but you do have to think about it when you come to putting this together. And I think that and the raising the models are 2 considerations that sort of come hand in hand. But yeah, it's can you deal with the stuff that's going to get in the way? Can you deal with the stuff that's potentially better than you at fighting? And then how do you go about delivering that into the right place once you've survived all the other rubbish that's been thrown at you? And that's really it. So hopefully that's been some insight. Is there anything you've got to particularly say on that subject, Wayne?
No, listening to you talk about obviously where you've been playing the VC is really, there's a lot of things to take on board, because obviously when we get back from Adepticon, VC is going to be my next project.
Yes.
So, but I want to kind of do more infantry based on.
Yeah.
But obviously take on a lot of what you obviously pick your brains about, how to do the build, but do the foot version of it.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's going to be something that I'm going to get into quite heavily over the next few months. So, but no, it's interesting to hear what you're saying. I mean, the amount of times I've played against, I always find with VC in general, when I play against them at tournaments, the builds are always really different. Like with a lot of armies, you get like a standard, like especially like demons.
Yes.
There's like a standard build. Warriors, there's a pretty standard build. But I always find with VC that it's always quite varied. The army always. I think
that's the best thing about the book.
Yeah, it's always quite different, and I really like the book because there's lots of different things you can do, and they're all. There's a lot of decent options in there. There might be some that are better than others, but they're all viable.
Yeah.
And I really like that about the book. That's one of the things that's kind of attracted me to it, actually, because I think there's a lot of once you've done your army, you've done it. There's a lot of extras you can add to it, which you will use. They're not like like the whole club gaming where you think, why not use them? But with the VC, you will use them.
Yeah, I mean, I
think it's really good.
I've painted a lot of the options, and I've got quite a few to add. I mean, there's still a bit of me that wants to take it to Adepticon. I haven't completely discounted it, but. And the reason being is it's just enjoyable to play. It has some flaws, but I think it's one of those armies that if you just, and I've said this all along, if you play and play and play it, you can get the max out of it. You've got some bad matchups inherently. Things like Dark Elves currently are going to cause an absolute nightmare. Warriors aren't particularly pretty, but like I found, if you've played Warriors a lot and you're a very good vampire player and you've got the right list, you can beat them consistently. It might not be great and it might not be easy to do, but you can do it. You're not going to smash them 20-0, but you can win consistently. Yeah. And I like that about a book that gives you the chance to do that, and it also gives you the chance to go and get massive wins if you really know what you're doing and you're sharp with it. So good book. And the bus is obviously still a solid build. I still always prefer it to the infantry because you can't get thunderstomped. You got movement. But the infantry are a very good build as well, especially if there's a lot of elves around, multiple Cryptori units and all the rest of it. But anyway, that's a topic for another day, I'm sure. So there you go. Hopefully that answers your question.
Beardy Weedy Week.
Okay, finally finishing off then. A quick Beardy Weedy Week, Wayne. What have you been up to?
What have I not been up to? Painting clan rats, Island of Blood clan rats, all just the normal box set clan rats. To the point where I've had to steal some off you, haven't I? Before the show, basically, sort of, you've been rummaging around your bits box to get me some more. I literally have run out of because there's so many infantry models in this army that I'm looking to take to Adepticon. The one thing that I'd have to say the best thing from a painting point of view about Adepticon is the fact that you don't have to submit the list until the morning of the tournament.
Literally, what we take on the plane is what we can use.
Yeah, which is brilliant because I've got the A-bomb and the Doom Wheel painted, obviously. So if I don't make it, painting wise to get this infantry army done, then it's not such a big deal. I can just fall back onto the original list. You know, I still had some painting to do for that, but I'll get that done easy. Because the main thing is the rebasing. So I've painted another. How many have I done now? I think it's this week I did 16 slaves, which doesn't sound a lot for the con usually the way that the speed paint, but it's but they're not speed paint. They're all painted, the way I've painted the rest of the army, and they take time, especially with the reds and everything. So, but it's that whole chipping away.
Yeah,
that's group of models done, and then over the next couple of days, if I can do another 10, and then suddenly it's like 24, 26, 30. It builds up, doesn't it? And suddenly there's a unit, boom, you've done 40. So I think I've got about another 50 to do. So if I just keep plugging away with them, basically. And obviously I've got the rebasing to do. So I've been sort of on that at the moment. But at the moment, it's going all right.
Yeah.
But I'm kind of thinking, I've got 5 weeks and you're sort of plugging away. But it's going to be that, and suddenly there's a week left.
Yeah.
And then you're thinking, oh man, I've got loads to do yet. So, but at the moment it's going all right.
Good.
What about you?
Well, in front of us, I've got what I've been working on, which is, again, I'd say I'm 85-15 in terms of taking Lizardmen to the next two tournaments. I'll explain my predicament, as I've explained multiple times to you, I know, Wayne. So, is basically, there is, this Friday, I have to submit a list for the Mersey Meltdown, which is in about is 2 weeks' time from this weekend. Then 2 weeks later, I think, is when we need to be on a plane to Adepticon. So whatever I choose to do now, I have to do for both, because I haven't got time to go, well, I'll finish off painting my vampires and then I'll paint my lizards. It just won't happen. I've got to do one or the other. And I'm running out of painting time. So I've been painting lizardmen. I actually started painting some vampires. I started painting just to see how quick it would take me to paint the skeletons, because my vampires are predominantly using dip. It's a very quick technique, basically. And I could paint everything I need in 2 weeks, I think, for the vampires. And that's why I'm still tempted to take them. What I wanted to do was try and paint the lizardmen. So what I'm thinking of doing is paint the lizardmen until Friday, seeing where I've got. If I don't think I'm going to get enough done, I will probably take vampires, which I really enjoy playing vampires. I'm just ashamed. I kind of want to take lizardmen to the US, just because I do. It's kind of, it is my army, really. But I'll see. That's what I'm hoping to do, is take lizardmen. I think they'd be more fun to play in the team tournament as well with my partner than the vampires. Vampires at low points aren't particularly entertaining, really. And without taking loads more models, it's a bit tough. But yeah, so I've been painting lizards. And I've done a bit of the skeletons, mainly with the lizards. I've got 5th edition metal skinks. I'm still on the lookout for about 23, 24 old 5th edition metal javelins to add to my army. But at the moment, I've been painting those and relearning the techniques that I used to paint this army many moons ago.
Yeah.
It's odd, isn't it? The book comes out and the edition changes, and suddenly I've got 3,500, 4,000 points probably lizardmen, and got not got the stuff I need painted. But because I painted the vampires in such a quick manner, painting, I've taken about 2 weeks to paint 9 skinks. So that's so it's probably 15 hours work on the 9 skinks. In 15 hours with the lizardmen, I could probably paint pretty much what I need I need 30-ish zombies. Most of those are razor balls, 10 skeletons, and 7 crypt horrors, which is nothing with the way they're painted. I could literally do it. I could probably even do it in a week if I had them built. So yeah, that's basically my predicament at the moment, and that's what I've been doing. I've been painting lizardmen, enjoying it, but concerned with the lack of time I've got left to do it, and I haven't played enough games to really hone the list. I think I know what I want to take, but I'm not convinced it's all that necessarily. And to give you an idea of the comparison of painting, I've got to paint the list I want to take. I've got to paint another 16 to 20 skinks, Teto Echo, and finish what I'm doing, and then I'll have to paint the movement trays. Doesn't sound massive, only say 20 skinks, but bearing in mind the amount of time it's taken me to paint this, there's quite a lot to do. So,
and on unlimited time as well, it is a lot to do.
And finish 24 Temple Guard.
Oh yeah,
which is the biggest point of the problem. So it's not looking particularly great on the lizard front, but I'm going to give it a go till Friday, I think, and then see where we are, because I can switch it up and paint the stuff I need in 2 weeks for the other one. So there you go. So that's it. Right, I think we're going to get out of here. Hopefully you've enjoyed the show. As always, you can catch us on Dan at Heelanhammer.com, Wayne at Heelanhammer.com, on Twitter, which is the main place for all the live updates, pictures of our games, chat, and general how to contact us, is at WayneKemp13 and at Heelanhammer. You can join our forum, www.heelanhammer.com/forum. If you do sign up and it's your first time, please drop me an email down at heelanhammer.com just to let me know. Otherwise, you'll get caught up with spam, as I need to activate your account. If you want to join the Saucy section, it's just £18 a year. It helps support the show. Unfortunately, podcasts aren't free. There's a lot of running costs, and we like to be able to purchase the stuff we want to talk about when the news comes out and reviews and stuff, and unfortunately that does cost a significant amount of money, and all those donations help us towards it. I think someone tweeted me the other day and said it best: think of the Saucy as an investment, not a purchase. There you go. We do try and get 1 to 2 shows a month out. Over the Christmas period, it's always a bit slower, just because of the nature of it. As I said, the Empire Review's out, and my sort of solo blog is by the time you listen to this show out. So all those things are on there, and then you've got the entire Heelanhammer archive and a load of other shows we've done over the years specifically for the Saucy. So really is a good place to be, so get that done. Other than that, just make sure you check out our sponsor, www.oddgames.co.uk, for all your fun time needs, especially if you are one of these X-Wing people that's all over Twitter at the moment, tweeting about it every 10 minutes. That's where you want to be going, so check that out and remember the code. Anything else, Wayne, before we get out of here? Apart from you chuckling into my hatred of X-Wing.
Have you played X-Wing yet?
No. I'll tell you what, I bet you it's an awesome game, and I love Star Wars. The only reason that I've got such a moany thing about it is because I follow all these people because they're Warhammer tweets, and I really enjoy their Warhammer content. So it's not like I just want to unfollow them.
Yeah.
But my feed is just X-Wing, X-Wing, X-Wing. I put it out there now. I don't care. I just don't care. Take it off. Have a new feed. The same person with X-Wing on the end, and just tweet about X-Wing. So there you go. I've got that off my chest. It's all good.
Feel better now?
Yeah, it's called Warhammer. We play it because we love it. So there we go. And on that note, I think we get out of here. So Wayne, anything else from you?
No, I'm done.
Cool. All right, guys. Hope you enjoyed the show, and we'll see you shortly.
Bye-bye.